this beautiful media center here. David Peterson I spoke with, Miss Alicia Stitt.
Oh, Aisha Stitt, that's my mom.
Beautiful name, Aisha Stitt.
Yeah.
And I want to thank all of those people, the principal, Mr. Tone, for graciously receiving me this morning for this presentation. And I want to acknowledge my granddaughter, Allison Ponder. Is she here? Is Alex's son in the room? I can't really see her. There she is, very good. So, Mr. Peterson gave me a long list of subjects that he wanted me to talk on with you guys. And I am going to try to I will address all of them throughout this presentation, but I'm going to let you know what he asked me to talk about. He wanted me to talk about some of my favorable moments in television. He wanted me to talk about some of the exciting stories that I possibly covered in television, which I did. He wanted me to talk about some of the challenges I may have faced in television. He wanted me to talk about racism I may have faced as a news anchor. He wanted me to talk about the discouragement I may have gotten from people who told me, well, you know, you can't do this. No one is doing this, you know, in your race, in your age. Back in 1977, when I started off in this direction. He wanted me to talk about when did I find out I wanted to be a news anchor, which was very interesting because I was at a young age and there were not many role models, but I knew exactly when I wanted to be a news anchor. And he asked me how the career path developed. That's a little bit more in depth because it's still developing. And you'll learn as a journalist, you will continue to develop, you will continue to grow. And as you age, you may start out in broadcast editing or writing, and you may end up in print editing and writing. You may like radio. I worked in radio. I worked in print, radio, and TV. So I have experience in all three of those mediums. I loved all three of them. I am relying more on print now since I'm out of broadcast more or less, which I started out in print. So print is the nucleus of your journalism career. You must have a strong writing background, period. Now, as you progress into radio, you're going to learn that writing for radio is different than writing for print, and broadcast is different because it requires a different kind of delivery. But the basic writing skills will remain the same from print, radio, and TV. Basic, formal writing. So, how did I figure out, or why did I think I could leave a small town in Valdosta, Georgia, and end up as a news anchor for a national network television station? That was really my goal all along when I left Valdosta, Georgia. I emulated some of the news anchors I would see on TV, and I would go into the bathroom and I would actually practice like little phrases and little paragraphs. And in fact, after I got a job in TV, I would still do things like that just to improve the craft of being able to communicate one-on-one when you're looking at people through a lens. So that's something you learn later. So there was a route I took. I started with a Black newspaper in Valdosta called the Southwest Georgia Enterprise. I think I'm getting ahead of myself. But I just want to let you guys know that I'm taking you through the journey. I'm going to start at CNN. I'm going to start with the very height of my career. This is the biggest thing I could ever have done in television, and that was to break a major news story. In this case, it was the Beirut barracks bombing story, and it took place in October of 1983, and I am going to play the first clip. I'm not going to play it all. I am here live. I did not know I wasn't supposed to be live, guys, because I wasn't experienced enough. That's what they told me. They were waiting for somebody else to come in to replace me. They said they wanted a seasoned newsman to come and replace me on the set. So I'm sitting there on the set. I can't really leave until a news anchor comes in to replace me. But I am so scared, y'all. I don't know if y'all can tell. I am just scared because I've never broken a live.
I think we're going to be ready in about a minute.
So now I'm talking to the
Okay.
reporter.
Okay. I'm going to say just at least 40 U.S. Marines are reported dead.
And I don't know what happened. happened to my presentation? But,
10 French soldiers were killed after.
I'm gonna pause that. So by now, I'm thinking, okay, I'm getting ready to go on live with this, with this breaking news story because no one has come to relieve me. And so this is.
We bring
behind
you
the
this
scenes.
special report.
This is what
President
happens
Reagan is
before
now
you go on
scheduled to
live.
leave Augusta, Georgia at 7 this morning, arriving back at Andrews Air Force Base in Washington. We bring you this special report. President Reagan.
Sorry, guys, I want y'all to see part one. This is the actual breaking of the story. This is the first time anyone in America had ever seen this story, okay? Oh, okay, I'm doing the wrong thing. I'm supposed to click something twice to play this. It's playing now. All right. Sorry, you all having little technical problems, but we're getting through them. So this was the most exciting story I ever covered, okay? Because it was live and it was new to me. I didn't think I would ever do it. It happens once in a lifetime of a news reporter to break a story. It happened to me by accident. I felt that when it was over, I did a good job representing my country, my state, and my hometown. I really do think I did a good
I
job.
think we're going to be ready in about a minute.
On for hours.
Okay.
This was the first
Okay.
part.
I'm going to say just at least 40 U.S. Marines are reported dead. 10 French soldiers were killed after 2 car bomb explosions went off. Jim Clancey is in Beirut and has this report live. Okay. Well, that's what we're getting on the wires, car bomb.
I had no writers, nobody in the studio with me.
Oh,
You can tell I'm
okay.
in there by myself.
I'll just say 2
There's a lot of people
explosions.
usually there. That
I'll just say
morning,
2 explosions
by myself,
then.
I'm really writing
Just
my
2
intro.
explosions. Okay.
I'm writing my intro, like handwriting it. Jim Clancy.
Yes, I can.
Great correspondent, Jim Clancy. He was actually in Lebanon, Beirut. How coincidental is that? He was already over there.
Okay. All right, we're getting ready to go on now, and I'll just ask you to give me
I
your
know I'm going
assessment
on
of
now.
what's happened. Okay.
And I'm still scared. But I get over it kind of quickly though.
Oh, I don't have my IFB plugged in.
I didn't have my IFB plugged in, guys. Seconds before air, this is what you plug into the console to hear the producers. I had unplugged it because we were waiting for somebody else to replace me.
Okay.
So I had to plug that in. That was unsettling.
Let me just plug my IFB in. Okay.
My nerves were a lot calmer then.
Yes.
So I'll hear 10, that means 10 seconds.
We interrupt this program to bring you this bulletin. This just in from Beirut. At least 40 U.S. Marines and 10 French soldiers are dead after 2 explosions. We have a report from Jim Clancey, who's in Beirut. And Jim, I'd like for you to give me your assessment of the situation there now.
The only word going to assess the situation here with is grim. Moans could be heard coming from beneath the rubble, both at the French building and at the U.S. Marine compound near the airport, where 2 bombs went off between minutes of one another. The Marine bomb went off.
Now, there were more lives killed in that explosion than during the Vietnam War. That was the precursor to 9/11, the Taliban. That was the first terroristic threat of Americans, even though it was in Lebanon, it was our Beirut barracks headquarters that was bombed. So this was the first indication of that. That is a classic example of how you break a news story, guys. So I'm gonna move on. At CNN, there was CNN, and then there was CNN headline news. CNN headline news, I was the first Black news anchor to anchor CNN headline news. Headline News actually premiered very quietly in 1979. CNN was launched in 1980. I anchored for Headline News and for CNN. Headline News used a 2-anchor set, meaning there were 2 anchors on that set at all times. CNN only used 1 anchor. As you can see, I'm sitting there by myself. Now I'm going to skip ahead here to
Eastern Airlines is faced with a strike again. Hello, I'm Gwen Sommers.
Good afternoon, I'm Rick Moore. Eastern Airline machinists are saying no to a 32% increase. The 13,000 workers want the hike to be retroactive. The offer was turned final by the airline, but now round-the-clock talks are set to begin Monday in Washington, D.C. Regional Vice President Wally Haber says the machinists want to avoid that walkout endorsed by members today and set to start Thursday at midnight.
It's an extremely amount of.
All right, I'm not gonna play the whole thing, but it's very, very fast paced and it's a 2-anchor set. I was the only news anchor who actually anchored both networks. I had the ability to co-anchor with different personalities, different styles, different speeds, different kinds of, whatever their style was. I had to adapt to their styles. Chuck Moore, I loved working with him because he had a quick pace, and so did I. We had rapid pace deliveries. And I probably had as many as 10 different co-anchors for Headline News. The night I broke the Beirut bombing story, I had just worked a full 4-hour shift at CNN News, Headline News, before I went over across the hall, walked over to the CNN set. I just left the Headline News set. There were 2 different sets. And prior to that, I had just left the WTBS news set. So I'd worked 3 shifts, guys. Sometimes on weekends, I would work 3 shifts. I would work for TBS, then I'd leave, go to Headline News, which was a 4-hour live cast, and then they would replay the 4 hours, so it appeared as if you're on the air 8 hours, but you're really on the air 4, but you're on the air live all 4 of those hours. And then at CNN, I would go there to rest. It was quiet, nobody was there. It was wonderful. And then that story broke. But so that's the 2-anchor set. All right, let's see what's next in this presentation. Oh, this is CNN on a morning when there's no breaking news. Okay, you're gonna laugh at this, I think.
American farmers have been hurt by low prices, and this month brought no relief. Figures released by the Agriculture Department show prices were unchanged between this month and last. In addition, prices are lower now than at this time last year.
So you see the differences, right, guys? You get it? Okay. A lot of people don't know the nuances of that. All right, so now I'm going to move on to, I did an interview with one of the largest, most legendary, biggest jazz artists in the world, Miles Davis. And I want you just to see a little bit of clip of this. So
after performing for over 40 years, Miles Davis can still hear the applause. As the master of the muted trumpet, Davis is credited with revolutionizing the sound.
I'm not going to play that whole thing, but what's unusual about that interview with Miles Davis, I have the raw, unedited footage, and I'm actually running that on YouTube now, and it's almost received 100,000 views, and I don't know how many comments from all over the world. Folks just love Miles Davis. This is back home in Valdosta where I got started, guys. Alvin Hart was a civil rights activist, but he was a publisher of a newspaper called the Southwest Georgia Enterprise. And so I started there. I was between 14 and 15 years old working there. And then the next slide, radio news, WBLD radio was a rock and roll radio station, and they hired me off the street. I went in as a reporter, Amy Dover. That was in Valdosta. That was 1976. This is the little sticker they would have put on my car, the official car, news car. So I had an official news car way back then. This was a predominantly white listening radio station, was rock and roll. My name was Amy Dover, and my family didn't even know that I was Amy Dover. They knew Amy Dover, but they didn't know it was me. And when I told them that, they were just shocked. I was doing so many things. The Valdosta Daily Times, I started out at my local newspaper. I went from the Southwest Georgia Enterprise to the actual Valdosta Daily Times as a print journalist first. And they wrote an article on Ponder prefers professional name. They're talking about when I changed my name from Barbara Ponder to Gwen Sommers. So I changed my name to Gwen Sommers because I was asked to by station management because of the B's and the P's. They said that they were popping too much on the microphone, the Barbara Ponder. And I was so, because I really didn't like the way that sounded anyway. And so they took my middle name, shortened it, and I liked Sommers and added Sommers, and I just kept it. And when I married, I added Redwine. So that's the story behind it. But this article actually from Valdosta, Georgia addresses the name change. So, and some other things that were going on, really. The Superstation, WTBS, Channel 17, founded by Ted Turner, owned WTBS, CNN Headline News, TBS Sports, the Cartoon Network, Turner Network News, TNT, all of those things. Ted Turner was from South Carolina originally, North Carolina originally, and he started out with a TV station and a billboard business. He grew the business to where it became really, really big. And fortunately for me, I was hired during a time when I guess you could get hired with a phone call. I called the station and I asked to speak to Bill Tush because I knew he was the news director. I've been trying to talk to people when I moved to Atlanta to WAOK Radio, which is a R&B station. I was trying to get a job in TV when I was offered a job in radio from Atlanta. And so I would spend time calling stations, just trying to get a feel for who hired and who's who. And so I had gotten a little knack down to where I would, you never call and ask, who's your news director? If you do, you don't tell them why you want to know it. So I called and I asked to speak to Bill Tush, who's the news director. And I told him that I had recently moved to Valdosta and I was working with WAOK Radio, the #1 rhythm and blues station in Atlanta, all black. I never worked at all black radio station before. I simply loved it. It was great. Working with some of the biggest DJs in America out of Atlanta. And I still have a relationship with these people today. So I was working there and I knew I wanted to work in TV. So with Bill Tush, I gave him a little bit of my background. He said, well, I don't have anything, but I'm glad you called. And then he said, wait a minute. I said, yes. He said, can you come in today to do an audition? I said, yes. And I went in and I did the audition. And he put me on the air that night. All right, so what time is it? I don't want to run over our time. I do want y'all to see some things. It's 9:45. About 5 minutes. But okay, I'm gonna run ahead to Blacks in America Guide on WTBS. I produced, well, this is Between the Lines. I actually interviewed Senator Herman Talmadge. He was one of our great senators. He was going through some trouble during this time, but he let me interview him on this show, which he felt, was sort of innocent. And it's a great interview, but we're going to run past that because I want you to see. This is a documentary. I'm going to leave this for you all, but this is a documentary I produced in 1980. It was award-winning on WTBS. It was for Black History. Oh, all of this was edited analog, an original TBS open.
Good evening. Tonight we have a special two-part program. The first half is Blacks in America, a 70s retrospective. The second half, Blacks in America, What is Happening, will be hosted by Dr. Eugene Greisman.
Okay, I'm going to move ahead to all of this. This is like response, arbitrary rating. We got great ratings. We were awarded awards for it. This is a short
Been taking a cue from the motion picture industry, capitalized on the success of Black-oriented subject matter, and produced a successful situation comedy featuring veteran A great still of talent, new and old, dominated the recording industry during the 70s. However, the music business is well known for forsaking as many artists.
All right, that's the documentary.
There were many
Y'all might like that.
She was also responsible for the discovery of 5 young men from Gary, Indiana. In 1969, Ms. Ross introduced Jackie, Jermaine, Tito.
I have all of the documents of negotiation with AFTRA, with SAG, Screen Actors Guild, their radio, Television American Federation of Broadcasters. I negotiate with those people to use every single document that I we had a sports segment. It was just packed.
There were many significant moments for blacks during the 70s. There were happy moments and sad ones. Let's take a look at a few of them. Doug Williams of Grambling University became the first black quarterback drafted in the first round. The Professional Golf Association still doesn't have that many black players. However, in 1974, Lee Elder became the first black golfer to qualify for the Masters. Puerto Rican-born Roberto Clemente spent 18 years with the Pittsburgh Pirates, died in a plane crash while delivering supplies to earthquake victims in Managua, Nicaragua in 1972. Patricia Roberts Harris, the Secretary of Health, Education, and Welfare, became the first black to hold that position when President Carter appointed her in 1979. Former NAACP Executive Director Roy Wilkins' tenure with the old civil rights organization spans 2 decades. Wilkins resigned in 1977. Sir Arthur Lewis of Princeton University became the first black to win the Nobel Memorial Prize in Economic Science when he and Theodore Schultz, a University of Chicago professor, shared the award in 1979. Former black activist Eldridge Cleaver, who was one of the founders of the Black Panther Party, returned to the United States from exile in 1975. The field of music lost 2 legends during the 70s. Duke Ellington died in 1974 at 75 years of age. Great jazz trumpeter Louis Sentmore Armstrong died in 1972. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad, founder of the Nation of Islam, died in 1975. He was succeeded by Wallace D. Muhammad, who changed the name of the religion and began to admit non-blacks. In the television industry, blacks started to move into the anchoring end of the business just 2 short years ago. Ed Bradley began his television career as a stringer for the CBS Bureau in Paris. He later became the first black to regularly anchor a weekend news program on a major network. Max Robinson became the first black to anchor a daily network news program when he joined ABC's World News Tonight in 1979. Jane Kennedy became the first black female to host a sports program for the major network. CBS hired her as co-host of the NFL Today in 1978. In the area of space technology, 3 blacks were added to the list of 27 astronauts during the 70s. The National Aeronautics and Space Administration announced that Major Frederick Gregory of Washington, D.C., Dr. Ronald McNair, and Major Ian Woodward Jr. would man the space shuttle, which is expected to start making regular voyages into space by the end of this decade. Atlanta millionaire Jesse Hill was elected by the Atlanta Chamber of Commerce as its president in 1978. Hill was the first black to be elected as president of the Chamber of Commerce in a major American city. Political activist Angela Yvonne Davis made the FBI's 10 most wanted list during the latter part of the 60s. She was acquitted on charges of murder, kidnapping, and conspiracy in 1972. General Daniel Chaffee James was the first and only black to earn the rank of 4-star general in the U.S. military. In January of 1978, General James became the first black general with the Air Force. He died 1 month later. We will continue at our look at blacks in America in a moment.
All right, guys. I have one last thing I want to say. I think I terrorized my little granddaughter about 7 or 8 years ago. I was going through a lot of my CNN, TBS memorabilia, and I pulled out my TBS CNN T-shirt, and I had her model for me. And this T-shirt is so rare. It is so rare. I had one other one. So how long ago was that? That was about 7 years ago, Allie. And I have the best picture. I printed this out this morning on my printer and it just sort of cut her head off a little bit. But she just took the best pictures. There's one with her head's all thrown back and she's got her hand on her hip. And so it was just good to see those photos again. And so this wraps up my presentation. Thank you all so much for having me. And I'm welcome to field any questions or answer any questions you might have. Yes.
What are some struggles that you face during the community?
Not being taken seriously because I was from the South, because I was on the network, not local. So I interacted with a lot of people who were from different parts of the world, parts of the country, had different degrees of education than I. But what helped me through all of that, young lady, was I was prepared. I was prepared for the network. I was prepared for those people. I knew how to make a documentary because I was taught that at my alma mater, Valdosta State University. And I knew how to speak and articulate because that was ingrained in me from when I was a little girl. So I felt that I had what I needed to compete. But yes, there were challenges. There was discrimination based on regionalism, the fact that I was from the South, which I had never experienced before, and the fact that I was a woman, and the fact that I was young. I was told I was too young to do something, and I arrived there when I was about 25, 26. I didn't consider that too young. So I experienced age discrimination. Race discrimination was a lot more subtle because it wasn't blatantly in your face, but a lot of it was done behind your back. A lot of it was done in the area of wage parity. I was never paid what I felt that I should have been paid. Especially after CNN came on air, because they were bringing in people like the guy that should have broke that story that I broke was making 6 figures. I was still in, I was way beyond that, below past that, okay? But my point is those kinds of things started happening and it increased, really. A lot of more people were being mistreated and, so we think that could have something to do with why the ratings plummeted and are kind of where they are right now, because the philosophy changed over time. And it started really kind of right when CNN was launched. It just took it a while to manifest, but there was exclusivity and favoritism. So you saw a lot of that going on from the people who migrated from New York and California to Atlanta to run the networks. So yes, I did experience some of it, but I got over it. I got over it, yes.
Did you face any racism as your music?
Yeah, well, breaking this story, I wasn't supposed to. They wanted someone else to break it, and they made it very clear to me that I say they, but it was really the producer that night. It was Mark Dolman, who was a very well-respected, well-known, seasoned producer. He was a producer that morning, and he made it very clear to me that he did not want me breaking that story. And even after I broke the story, he was not nice to me the entire while I was doing those cut-ins, and I was fielding questions and calls from Nicholas Shevsky and Clancey and Dean Reynolds. No other Black woman or woman has done that since, sit on a network desk and to anchor it at solo like that. I was the first and the only one, but I've never received that recognition for it because I think it's because no one else has done it but me. So the college recognized me for breaking the story. It was during a time at CNN when you didn't see Jim Clancey's video on the air. You didn't see Nicholas Shevsky's video. You didn't see Dean Reynolds' video. But I was the only video, so they may have resented that. We don't know why they suppressed the story, but no, they should not have, because it was a very important story. And actually, CNN told PBS frontline producers who actually used a cameo of me in a production 2 years ago that they lost the footage. This is my personal footage. So they, PBS ended up using some of my footage, but CNN told them they didn't even have the footage of breaking the baby story. So, yes.
How did it feel being pretty much one of the first African American news anchors.
It felt great. Felt wonderful. When Bill Touch told me to come in there, do y'all think I was scared? No, I was not scared. And you know why I wasn't scared? Because I had already auditioned in my hometown up in Tallahassee, Florida, and I completely loved that audition, y'all. It was awful. So I had experience. And I vowed if I ever got another chance to audition, I would do better. And so I got that. When he told me to come in, I was like, yes, I'm ready. What I didn't expect when I got there, though, was that there was no teleprompter. It's sort of similar to how CNN was looking that night, when, you know, when no one's around. It was skeletal. It's called skeletal crew, or in this case, no crew. With a TBS, no teleprompter for almost 6 months of the entire while I worked there. I memorized my scripts and I would look up and down. No one knew I didn't have a teleprompter. That was something else I learned as a child, learn how to memorize. And so I was able to utilize that skill with that, because even though they know there's no teleprompter, they want you to give a good audition. So, and I learned that from the Tallahassee audition. So I went in there prepared to, in fact, I studied how to do auditions from when I loved that first audition. And so when I got that opportunity, I was so good. He asked me to come in that night. TBS had over 3 million viewers, and I went on live that night. I love telling that story. Yes.
Okay, so I have a question about, this is basically advice. So I'm in the journalism club and I'm a brand ambassador. And I also chose at Midtown, I chose the film and technology pathway. So
The
that's
film and what?
technology pathway. So
mhm.
and I also did announcements in morning at Morningside, my previous school.
Good.
So what's like some advice you have for a Black woman in the like the film industry, and about like, because I heard about the lighting doesn't work on like certain skin colors and things like that. What are some
Oh, okay.
advice?
Good question about film and lighting. When I started working, I wish I brought that photo for WTBS. They did have to adjust the lighting for the set for me. The set was utilized by 4 or 5 different on-air person. I was the only one of color. And that was when I learned about lighting. There are jobs in the field for people who are interested. I guess that would fall under technology, Corey, but lighting, that lighting guy at WTBS, I had no idea there were even jobs such as that. But that man spent so much time. He would go up, he would adjust the lights at the top. He had me sit on that set. He had me sit on that set with other people to see how the light bounced back and forth. So that's why our lighting was so good. But yes, that's very important. Even though my skin is not real dark, it was dark enough for them to have to adjust the lighting. So I found that fascinating, you know. And Ted Turner put the money into A1 class productions. He did. He spared no expense, and he was a man of integrity. And he loved CNN, and he liked the way we started off promoting and reporting news unbiasedly, you know, just doing it correctly. And then things changed. I think the 24 hours got to be too much, you know. I'm getting away from your question, but yes, I didn't know it was a problem, but they did, because they adjusted the lighting for me. So yes, that is an issue, but it may not be a big issue now. Maybe we've overcome that lighting problem.
They started making like different cameras to fit. Like, they started making different cameras to fit like Black skin and like darker skin.
You're kidding.
Yeah, I think, yeah, they're trying to make stuff because I don't know, I watched a documentary about it and I think they're making new cameras.
See, well, look what I've learned from you.
Yeah.
That's one, I'm gonna look into that. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
Get out of here. That is really interesting. Okay, young man.
Who was the most influential person in your life as a journalist?
Living or dead. I know I emulated those news anchors. They were all white men. I believe it had to be David Brinkley. I liked him a lot better than I did Chet Huntley. He was nicer or warmer. It was something. It was a double anchor team, and Brinkley was just like a granddaddy. But Chet Huntley seemed more. I don't know. I just didn't really like him. And I hate to say David Brinkley because I don't even know him. But I do know that I wrote the Beirut bombing story over David Brinkley. Oh my goodness, and he was my idol. Can you believe that? So, and I thought about that. I said, God, David Brinkley's doing the story, and I've already broken the story. I was watching the next day, and I still got no recognition from CNN to this very day for doing that story. Now, I have been acknowledged by Jim Clancey, who has been talking to me about our work that morning. But as far as anybody else, no. Okay, any other questions?
Can I ask one final follow-up question?
Yes, ma'am.
So we have writers in here, we have journalists, we have so many really just motivated students. And I'm wondering, what advice would you give them about how to find and cover stories? Any just general advice? That's a very
I'm gonna
hard
give y'all the advice that I used. I was aggressive, passionate, tenacious, and honest. You all understand what I'm saying? First is passion. If you don't have passion, forget it, because you gotta have thick skin. People are not gonna care about your feelings. They're not gonna care that you're Black. They're not gonna care that you're a woman. They're not gonna care that you're Asian. They're not gonna care that you're Muslim. They don't care, okay? And you don't care that they care. All you're trying to do is do your job. Don't worry about your skin color. It will come. You do your job and do it well. And you will stand out. You will. And if it doesn't work for you right away, don't spend too many years messing around and not making money. Move on. That's my advice. Move on. If it's not working out, say within a couple of years or 3 at the most, move on and move up. Never go back and don't go lateral. Okay? Lots of different great opportunities to have fun in journalism. It's a huge field. A lot of people think it's just TV, and it's huge. Lighting, set design, editing, writing, reporting, it's all, yes.
When and what made you realize that you wanted to be a music anchor?
I'm sorry, start the entire question over.
When and what made you realize that you wanted to be a news anchor, right?
I think the growing up, speaking, being in dramatic kinds of programs, inspired by my elocution, my second grade teacher who ended up being an elocution teacher. She taught us how to speak and she brought words alive. I grew up in a family of people who were grammarians, who were educators, so they taught us to speak great grammar and they taught us how to articulate our words. So that's how maybe some of it came easy and natural for me. You're welcome.
Okay, we have to get them to class, and I know you guys have so many questions, so maybe we can follow up with you later. We cannot thank you enough. Let's just say thank you. Still have questions?